So world ranked number 4th team France met world ranked number 5th team Argentina this weekend in Paris at the Stade de France in what was going to be France's last game in this year's autumn international series. They'd beaten Japan in their first game. They had that 1-point thriller against the All Blacks in their second game, and they were hoping to be able to make it 3 in a row against this Argentinian team. Well, Argentina came into this game with a lot of players who play in the top 14 in France. In fact, 2/3 of the players on the field in this game were representing top 14 clubs throughout France. So it was going to be a really interesting game to watch from that perspective as well. Well, things got underway and it couldn't have got any worse for Argentina early on, as Montoya was given a yellow card for an indiscretion at a breakdown, and Argentina, who were probably hoping to keep control of their discipline in this game, were under pressure right from the very start. So within 5 minutes, Argentina had a player sent off the field. It didn't take long for France to capitalise on having one extra player, and in the 10th minute of the game, Flamand went over for a great try to France after some really good build-up by their forwards, and that was converted by Thomas Ramos, who doesn't seem to ever miss a kick from the kicking tee, and France were in the lead by 7 points to 0, so they really made it pay against Argentina for having that one man off the field. And then over the next 10 minutes, it was a pretty tight affair, although France were getting the upper hand, I thought, in terms of particularly their forwards. And in that 10 minutes, we saw 3 penalties, 2 to Argentina, 1 to France, both all in kicking distance, I should say. So France went out to a 10-6 lead after Thomas Albanos was able to get 2 penalties over for Argentina. Argentina, I felt, were struggling to get into the game. France were really playing very well when it came to their defensive line. And although Argentina did make some good forays with multiple phases out wide, they were being cut down by the French defence. That was right up in their face and doing some very, very good job, very good tackling. I must say that I thought the French forwards, when they were trying to run the inside channels for Argentina, were cutting down the Argentinians, and it made it a lot easier for them. I must say I was really impressed with the French defence. It was working very, very well. Around the 20th minute of the game, we saw multiple phases, in fact 16 phases by Argentina against the French, and every time they went out wide, the French were able to stop them from penetrating. They did get close to the line, and there was a result of a penalty that Albanos did get, but France could have gone down 7 points in that particular move, and they didn't. So I thought that was a very critical part of the game as well. In the 24th minute of the first half, there was a really big point in the game. We saw Pablo Matera for Argentina make a really good steal at a breakdown. He won a penalty for Argentina, and then a funny thing was he was off the next second with an HIA. So in converting that penalty, he put himself off the field for a little while. Albanos was able to get the kick over, so Argentina were back to 13 points to 9 with 25 minutes gone in the first half. And it really looked like they were able to climb their way back into the game. And that's something I've been super impressed with this Argentinian team. They don't seem to panic when they get behind on the scoreboard. They're able to grind their way back into the game. And the French, who had the support of the crowd up until this point of the game, were really starting to find they were in a bit of an arm wrestle. I thought the next period of play before half time was going to be really critical in this game. And so it was. The period leading up to half-time was probably the most critical period in this game. A few things happened. First of all, we saw Thomas Ramos do a fantastic 50-22. Very calculated, very pinpoint accurate as far as gaining that distance, and that really put France down on attack. Gave them a great opportunity to get close to the Argentinian line and to see whether those big French forwards were going to be able to put any pressure on Argentina from a defensive point of view. Now, as is often the case in these games, small margins make a huge difference, and it was from an Argentinian knock-on that we saw a French scrum, and they put the ball out wide, and we saw that man Villery on the wing get a try for France, a fantastic try for France. Broke this game open, and it was just off that small mistake of that knock-on by Argentina when they were down defending close to their own lines. So this was a really critical point of the game. From 13-9, we went out to 20 points to 9 by the time Ramos had got the conversion over. And then just a couple of minutes later, a really big point in the game. We saw Argentina defending a great kick through from the French, and it was one Martin Gonzalez who was the only man back in the last line of defence, and he seemed to deliberately try and hit the ball out. The referee and the TMO deemed that it was deliberate knock-on, and it ended up being a penalty try to France. So quite a controversial situation. If you have a look at it a couple of times, it does seem that when Gonzalez hit the ball, he was actually in the field of play. By the time the ball landed, it was backwards over the goal line, and that would have meant that it was okay and just a scrum to France. But however, it was deemed to be a deliberate knock-on. I don't know how that's the case when the ball actually travels backwards, and France ended up with a penalty try. So 13-9 had quickly become 27-9, and in the last couple of minutes before the first half had finished, Thomas Ramos got another penalty, and all of a sudden we saw the scoreboard blossom out to 30 points to 9 to France. This was really unfortunate for Argentina. So it was very unfortunate for Argentina. Things weren't going their way in that first half. Just a couple of lapses, particularly with those yellow cards. Contaponi would have been very upset at half-time, I'm sure. And they were well behind on the scoreboard. So it's going to be interesting to see what they could do in the second half. On the other side of the dressing rooms, I think that Fabien Galtier would have been pretty happy with this French team, particularly with the points they had on the scoreboard. They were looking the more enterprising in that first half. They were doing a lot of great passes out wide. We were seeing Mofana and Ficou in the play quite a lot. Every time Louis Biarri got the ball, he looked extremely dangerous for France. And the forwards were doing a great job. We saw once again Flamand and Mifu being really instrumental in some of the big runs up the middle. And with Antonio back in the French team this weekend, he was also making his presence felt in the scrums. So things were going well for France, but I didn't think Argentina were too far away. They were having a bit of bad luck in this game. A couple of things didn't go their way. But that's what's happening in these big matches against the top teams these days, isn't it? It's just a game of centimetres. Now, what I've been watching closely throughout this autumn international series is how teams are being able to finish games in the second half. There's been a lot of up and down from teams. They've either played extremely well in the first half, or like in Argentina's cases, they've been able to come back and play very well in the second half. So it's going to be really interesting to see who scored first in the second half, and whether or not Argentina were going to get an opportunity to try and get back into this game. In the 56th minute, they did get that opportunity with Gaucho going over for a good try for them and putting some more points on the scoreboard. Mr. Reliable for Argentina, Thomas Albornoz, got the conversion over, and we were back to 30 points to 16. And was this going to be Argentina's chance to get back into the game? It was looking as though they were putting more pressure on France. France had fell away a little bit at the beginning of the second half, and I think there was two reasons for this. They'd spent a lot of energy in that first half trying to get some dominance against this Argentinian team, and Argentina were doing what they usually do. They were grinding their way back into the game. They were playing better structures, and it was starting to tell against this French team. So just after that try to Argentina, we saw a couple of mistakes and a very important part of the game indeed. We'd seen Velez come on for halfback for Argentina, replacing Garcia, who started the game, who I thought was doing pretty well, and I'm not too sure why they took him off at that stage of the game. But Velez came on, and immediately he had two kicks charged down from his box kicking attempt. It gave the ball away to France, and within the next minute they'd scored a fantastic try to Biarri out wide. And this really broke the game open for France. It was a crucial period of the game. Argentina looked like they were coming back into the game, but once again, those small margins really make a difference. A couple of errors from the halfback ended up costing Argentina big time. So that try to Biarri really put Argentina under the hammer, I thought, and we saw Ramos was successful with the conversion. So France were out to 37 points to 16. And it seemed to kill off Argentina's chance of really trying to get back into this game. But there was a glimmer of hope for Argentina, and in the 69th minute we saw Ruiz go over for a good try after a good forward move from Argentina, a couple of pickets and goes, and finally Ruiz got over and scored that try for Argentina. So it's 37-23 now, and still a big bridge to cross for Argentina if they were going to have any chance at all in the last 10 minutes of the game. But it wasn't to be on this occasion, and France were able to manage the end of the game, although I don't think they played very well. Indeed, Argentina were definitely having the momentum in that last part of the game. They just weren't able to crack a very good France defensive line, and I will give them that credit this weekend. I thought the French defense was outstanding at times. Argentina had several times throughout the game where they were running the ball like crazy against the French backline, and they were able to cut them down. And I think that's one of the things that Mofana and Feku have been doing in particular very well in this series this year for France in the Autumn International Series. So it was a comprehensive win in the end, 37-23 on the scoreboard. Although France did fall off in the second half, I thought Argentina did what they usually do, and they came back and they played very, very well in that second half. They just didn't get a couple of things going their way that could have meant the difference in this particular game. So overall, France won all three of their autumn international games against Japan, New Zealand and against Argentina. Fabien Galthié will be very, very happy with that. I think he saw some good performances from France. We saw how dangerous they are attacking out wide. Biel Biarri has to be one of the best wingers in the world at the moment, and he's only 21 years old, so he's playing fantastic rugby. And we also saw some commanding performances, I thought, from Thomas Ramos at number 10. A lot of people, particularly on this channel, have been saying Ramos is not a number 10. Well, I thought he played very well in the game yesterday. He was very accurate once again with his kicking, both in general play but also off the tee. You can always rely on him. But for me, throughout the series, it's been the French forwards that have been very, very exceptional. And we've seen the likes of Flamand and Roumat and Miafu do fantastic jobs. We've seen Malvaca play well at hooker as well. And we've also seen the back three of Grul, Olivon, and also Aldred, although he didn't play yesterday, in a very good back three for France. For me, France is still one of the best rugby teams by far in the world. Of course, they had that very narrow loss against South Africa last year at the Rugby World Cup. They've come out this year, they've beaten the All Blacks, they've beaten Argentina, and they've played some very, very good rugby. And I think they are a very, very good rugby team who on their day can beat any team in the world. And I would put South Africa amongst that group as well. For Argentina, it was a disappointing autumn international series, wasn't it? They lost that game closely to Ireland, which they would have rued a few chances that didn't go their way. And they had a poor start to this game against France, I thought, in the first 40 minutes, particularly with 2 yellow cards. And these are the small things that I think are costing Argentina from really climbing up to be one of the top 3 teams in world rugby at the moment. And I'm sure with a great season that Contaponi has had with this team, they're going to go away, they're going to work on it, and they're going to come back better in 2025. But I've got to say, I'm super impressed with a lot of players in this Argentina team. Thomas Albanoz at number 10 is a standout for me. He's absolutely exceptional. And over the next couple of years, heading up to the Rugby World Cup in Australia, I think Albanoz is going to be one of the top 10s in world rugby, that's for sure, and probably a superstar of that competition as well. I think halfback is a little bit of a problem for Argentina. They've got to find some consistency there and have somebody that can get Argentina going ahead on the front foot with some sniping little runs, keeping the defence checking it a little bit, because yesterday we saw France knowing predictably what Argentina was going to do when the ball came out, particularly to Albanoz and onto Moroni at number 12, and that got caught up a couple of times with Moroni yesterday as well. Delgui's played good games on the wing. Malia at fullback has been also very good, although we didn't see him shine yesterday in this game against France. And we saw finally Mateo Carreras coming back on and having a couple of good runs in this game yesterday for Argentina. So once they get their complement of full players back on, we saw Marcus Creamer came back on yesterday again for Argentina, made a big difference, I thought, in that second half. And once we see the top players from Argentina playing consistently against the top teams in the world, we're going to see this Argentina team continue to improve throughout 2025, in my opinion. So there's a lot for France to be happy with about this team. A win over the All Blacks is always a good thing, but then to back it up a week later and beat Argentina, I think that's a really, really good sign for Fabien Galthié and this team. Of course, he's got a team of superstars there. There's a lot of good players in this French team that should not be underrated. And I think with their forwards playing as well as they are now, they're going to be able to take on any team in the world and do very, very well. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in 2025 with this French team. Of course, they've got the tour down under to New Zealand, and there's all this talk and hype around who's going to be selected. Let's wait and see who actually gets selected to go on that tour to New Zealand. That will be very, very interesting indeed. So there you go. There's my post-show review for this game between France and Argentina. A win to France by 37 points to 23 at the Stade de France. And there's plenty more exciting rugby coming up this weekend. So stick around here on Inside Rugby with Mark, and I'll walk you through all the games from my perspective. Until next time, stay well, stay safe, keep enjoying your rugby, everyone, and I'll see you again very soon. It's adios from me from beautiful Cancun in Mexico. Bye for now.